Does anyone remember these guys? Seems like only yesterday we were in perpetual war with ISIS, and our previous president was constantly telling us how we had to destroy them.
At this moment, the greatest threats come from the Middle East and North Africa, where radical groups exploit grievances for their own gain. And one of those groups is ISIL, which calls itself the Islamic State. These terrorists are unique in their brutality. They execute captured prisoners. They kill children. They enslave, rape, and force women into marriage. They threaten the religious minority with genocide. And it has no vision other than the slaughter of all who stand in its way. And our own safety, our own security, depends upon our willingness to do what it takes to defend this nation and uphold the values that we stand for.
So, with the incessant Russian conspiracy theory echoing throughout the media, here's an update on the once greatest threat to America.
A UK-based organization that monitors terrorism is reporting that the most wanted man in the world, ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, is confirmed dead.
An Iraqi news agency says Islamic State militants have announced the death of their leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Iraqi security forces are aiming for a swift final victory. They've surrounded the last remaining ISIS fighters holed up in a shrinking section of the old city, a handful of streets now near the Tigris River.
The city of Mosul to be freed from ISIS control. Pentagon officials here have told us that it could be any day now where the city of Mosul in Iraq could be freed, where ISIS could be completely pushed out of Mosul.
So given that ISIS has all but been defeated, this propaganda rag, VOX, releases a video titled, "What Happens After ISIS Falls? This Should Be Good."
The terrorist group ISIS is losing. At the end of 2014, it claimed a territory the size of Great Britain and a population of 11 million people. But today it's lost about 60% of that, and its population is down to about 2.5 million.
So far, so good.
Now with the loss of Mosul, the fall of this ISIS caliphate seems imminent. So what happens when ISIS is gone?
As ISIS's territory shrinks and the state that they tried to build collapses, anyone who survives will have to find somewhere else to go. And that's a major problem because many of these people are now indoctrinated, they're now well connected, and they're capable of carrying out deadly terror attacks.
Okay, while I understand, former ISIS members could carry out terrorist attacks, if allowed, to return to their homelands. But this is why we vet immigrants, isn't it? Oh, that's right. We call people racist when they want to increase vetting standards. What exactly is the point they are making here? Is it that we should allow ISIS to have their piece of land and continue with a perpetual illusion of war? Or perhaps what VOX is saying is that we make sure we kill every last one of them to avoid the problem of survivors.
The second problem is what to do with the U.S. military after ISIS falls. Right now, the U.S. is helping local forces in Iraq and Syria to defeat ISIS. There are currently around 1,000 U.S. troops in Syria and around 6,000 U.S. troops in Iraq. The Trump administration has two choices. Option one is to keep the U.S. troops there, which would leave them in harm's way. Or option two is to bring them home, which increases the risk that the region breaks out into war again.
This is their second problem. And who exactly is this a problem for? Is it the troops who are no longer in an active war zone? Or is it the region we would be leaving? Because as everyone knows, an American military occupation is always welcomed and loved by every single country that we have ever done this to.
Problem number 3 is ISIS moving from a place to an idea. Up until now, ISIS had one goal: defend the territory it already had in Iraq and the territory it already had in Syria. The problem is it's on the verge of losing both.
Problem is, you're an idiot shill. ISIS is an idea. That is how it started. Then, it acquired a place. Nothing starts off as a place, and then turns into an idea. You know, like say, oh I don't know, the United fucking States. You see, there were these white men who had an idea, and then decided to find more land to spread their idea, slaughtering those who occupied the land from sea to shining sea.
And when that happens, ISIS goes from being the kind of place people go to fight to being the idea that people fight for. And it's an idea that's compelling.
Did he just say it's an idea? That's compelling. Okay, just check.
It's an idea that its followers are willing to kill for, and that its followers are willing to die for. And at the end of the day, that's the hardest thing about ISIS. It can be beaten on the ground in Iraq and Syria. It is being beaten on the ground in Iraq and Syria. But it's going from being a place to an idea. And it is impossible to defeat an idea.
This argument is a ridiculous, formal fallacy. This just confirms that rags like MSNBC, CNN, The Washington Post, New York Times, VOX, and countless others no longer can claim to be journalists, and are much closer in definition to a person who uses unlawful violence or intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims.